maintenant c'est à moi de raconter quelque chose. Yeah, it's very emotional for me, so I'm just about to tears are right here. But so my brother and I, when we were growing up, we always hear those stories about how my parents went through the borders when the war was finished. It was very, very dangerous at the time. There were no papers. Post-war Europe was chaos, and they went from frontier to frontier, and often you gave money to someone who would help you pass the border, and you never came out on the other side. And there were very big stories, but we always heard about the joint. That was before I knew about other joints. But it was a very big emotional, big emotional story for me. And really, when I got Michael's email, who came through the Jewish community in New Zealand, I thought, wow, this is a fantastic opportunity, because I always wanted to thank someone, but I never knew who. It was, yes, I suppose I could have looked it up. It was, this was an opportunity, a direct call for, tell me a story, share the story with us. So I did so. Tout ça, je te le raconte, toi tu sais, je te le raconte. My parents wanted me to say that they have 2 children, me and my brother, and 8 grandchildren, and 2 great-grandchildren in Israel. And it's all the more important that because there were many other people, as we know, who did not survive. And then what happened to those lost generation who could be with us? It's remembering them that to also talk today. And the last thing that I want to say is that it's really incredible for us to be here today. Usually I'm presenting at conferences, so I'm a social science researcher, and I research the social inclusion of people with disabilities and handicaps. And I spend a lot of time presenting at conferences, but this is the very first time that my parents saw the presenters. So it's a huge opportunity for us. Thank you for giving the kudos also, for giving the kudos, yes, the credit. And they also always thought that their story was trivial, and it wouldn't be interesting to anyone apart from our children. And here today is proof that it is an important story and it needs to be remembered. And one of the reasons why we have these photos here is because some of their friends, are no longer with us, and we will send you photos with some names so you can put them in the archive so their memory can also.
I didn't quite get your French there.
Okay, so I'm Stefan. I wasn't quite sure kind of how to fit into this event here. It's an interesting thing because this story, while it's been in the family for very long, it doesn't come out intuitively. It doesn't come out very easily. So one thing about my family, and you've heard this a little bit, we've been spread all over the world for a while. If we showed you our family tree, it would be very, very confusing. So you already have here a few generations. I was born in Israel. I've now lived most of my adult life in New Zealand. But my mom is French, my dad is South African, my mom's parents are Romanian. And so, so there's cultural and linguistic barriers to sort of getting the story, never mind to you and the world, but just even within the family to hearing about these things. So a few years ago, I was traveling through Israel, and I was trying to connect with my grandparents, because there's a big generational gap, and I work in venture capital. I can't tell my grandparents about venture capital. I studied biotechnology. I can't talk to my grandparents about biotechnology, but I can talk to them about their experience and about their stories and about their life. So I started asking about these stories, and some of them were very hard to get out because they were very emotional, and there was an objection to share them. Eventually, I started writing them down, and I did my best to translate them from my terrible French to my even worse Hebrew, and I eventually ended up putting this into an email and sending it out to my cousins. Now, some of my cousins don't have a common language with my grandparents. My grandparents speak Romanian and French and Yiddish, but they don't speak English or Hebrew very well. So this, for many of my cousins, was the first time that they had heard this story as well. So anyway, so I'm very glad that it's coming out. And I think it's somewhat even therapeutic for my grandparents. We talked about this a little bit before, to be able to say this, for other people to come along and say this is important. Yeah, thank you for having us. Thank you for listening.
When the war finished, I decided to make my aliyah to Israel with my fiancée Shelly. Her mother said, only if you get married you before. Typical mother's power. After we get married, we travel 7 months but the Palestinian border was closed. So organization like the Joint help us to in Paris to find a place to live, to feed us and find a job. Today we like to thank you very much.
C'est l'introduction, it's the introduction.
Je peux traduire
Oui.
du français à l'anglais. Si
Ouais.
ça-
Oh, okay. Alors, so now we've prepared a few little stories just to illustrate. Now in French and
Why was
Parle français.
je parle français.
Comme tu veux.
Quand nous sommes entrés en France, on nous a dit comportez-vous comme des amoureux.
Comme des Français.
When they
Alors,
were,
on a marché comme ça tout le temps.
when they arrived at the border, vous arriviez d'où? Vous étiez à quel...
Like in Italy, French.
C'était à la frontière. They were at the Italy-French border, and they were told, in order to get into France, that they have to behave like boyfriend and girlfriend. So they basically
Blend
were-
en France. On s'embrasse beaucoup en France.
and in France they kiss a lot. So it's,
Menton.
à Menton.
Menton.
The Menton is at the south of the
From
south of the
Menton,
country.
we take the train to Nice, to a big hotel. But we can't sleep because the bed was very, very soft. We sleep on the floor. After we take the train, but it was a boulangerie with the baguette, very nice baguette. We take 10 of baguette to Paris. We think why Paris ain't low, ain't food.
Alors maintenant à Paris, maman, tu peux pas parler. C'est là qu'on commence.
Montmartre, Place de Tertre. It was
Can you put it in context? I don't know what year this was.
Rue Lamarck.
Quelle année? Vous avez fait à Paris?
This was 48.
48.
1948.
We arrived to Rue Lamarck. It was a house for the people they arrived in Paris. From Rue Lamarck, they take us in the prefecture to make first carte d'identité.
Working papers.
And after that, they joined, begin to help us to find a hotel, for food, a job. And we thank you, Joint, for the job. And, my first job was the Joint give me. It was a big depot with medicine, with food, with begadim, clothes. I worked a few months after we was healed and go to hospital to make an operation.
J'étais 2 mois à l'hôpital. J'ai enlevé un rat. Ah, 1948. 1948.
In 1948, when they arrived in Paris, he was sick and he had to have treatment for 2 months. They took off
Kidney.
a kidney
Took off one
kidney
kidney.
operation.
Et moi, ils m'ont donné un signet que je suis d'accord. Je ne savais pas pourquoi. Je ne savais pas français, ni rien du tout.
And because she didn't know French, she had to actually sign off that she
Consent.
agreed the consent form. She didn't know what she was signing because she
Et à
didn't know
l'époque,
French.
il est resté 2 mois à l'hôpital.
And he had to stay for 2 months
C'est
in
à
the
l'autre
hospital
bout de Paris.
on the other side of Paris,
Hôpital Rothschild.
on the
Hospital
Rothschild
Rothschild.
Hospital.
During the war, I take cold in the rain, and after that, I was obliged to operate, to have operation.
I want to ask, was there a central office? Est-ce qu'il y avait un bureau central du Joint qui était chargé
Ouais,
de vous aider?
ouais, il y en
Ou
avait.
est-ce que c'était le Joint aidé à travers d'autres organisations?
Non, il y avait une agence. On ne connaissait pas vraiment comme ici.
Il traversait à travers d'autres, comme le Cojasor,
Mhm.
à Paris.
Vous avez connu Cojastor, c'est ce que c'est à peu près la même.
So
Ah,
apparently
well,
the JDC had an office in Paris, but they also worked through different organizations that they supported financially to carry out different missions. Which,
À l'époque, on habitait à l'hôtel Moblet, une chambre.
so they lived in a furnished hotel room.
Et mon mari il avait un frère qui avait 13-14 ans qui est venu de Roumanie avec nous. Il ne voulait pas rester là-bas. Et moi aussi j'avais un frère. Aussi. Alors qu'il est mort aussi à 37 ans parce qu'avec toutes les frontières qu'on a passées, il a tapé froid, malade, ce que j'ai fait. Moi.
They each had brothers. The one brother who actually died young at age 37 because of the sicknesses that he caught in trying to cross the different
Il est mort à
borders.
37 ans. Et moi je sais, il y a une dame de l'agence juive,
Mhm.
qui est venue, pas changer, c'était, comment ils font ici, comment
The
c'était
Joint.
Ils sont venus voir qu'est-ce qui se passe. Alors ils ont vu que je n'ai pas d'argent, j'ai rien. Ils ont payé un peu l'hôtel, ils m'ont donné des tickets pour manger. Il y avait un quartier, vous connaissez un peu Paris?
Mhm.
C'est bien. Alors il y avait Belleville, à l'époque, Belleville, c'était un quartier juif. Il y avait des personnes comme ici qui faisaient à manger. On avait le droit de prendre ce qu'on voulait, il y avait à manger. Vraiment.
So the people from the Joint, they were staying in this hotel with one of the younger brothers. They came and they realized that they were very poor, had no means to support themselves. They gave them money for the hotel and also gave them access to food packages and availability to food. It was an area called Belleville, which was an immigrant area. Which at the time, she says, it was a very Jewish neighborhood. And it was.
Un deuxième restaurant, il y a Rehov Médicis. Garden.
Je ne sais pas pourquoi c'était là-bas, je ne sais pas. Alors, mais on avait. Alors, et après, il y avait un bureau, séparé, pour aller chercher du travail.
So there was another canteen place where you could eat, which was on Rue Médicis, which is a different neighborhood. There was also an office that took care of helping people find work.
C'était pas facile, hein, parce que je ne savais pas parler. Et puis on voyait dans une grande boîte, plein de machines, on travaillait vite. Puis moi je ne connaissais pas tout ça, je savais coudre un peu, mais c'est pas ça. J'arrive là-bas, on me donne un paquet, je ne sais pas par où commencer. Alors le type était un juif, il vient à côté de moi, il me dit, je vois que c'est nicht fadir, tu ne connais pas, tu comprends pas yiddish.